November 1820. In the mid-Pacific Ocean, a crew of American hunters is attacked by their own prey. Their whale ship, the Essex, is smashed and sunk by an angry sperm whale, 1,000 miles from land. The disaster casts the crew on one of the most horrifying odysseys in maritime history. 20 sailors, some of them mere teenagers, matched against 1 million square miles of ocean. The sinking of the Essex inspires a literary classic, Herman Melville's Moby Dick.
Melville wrote that although he knew his book was a strange book and an odd book, he wanted to capture the truth of the thing. He liked to blend the allegorical and the factual. And in the Essex story, he had a real-life incident in which something of allegorical proportion, a whale attacking a ship, actually had taken place.
The true story of the Essex is a 3-month ordeal of sacrifice and survival, execution and cannibalism. "20 years after the tragedy, a young writer named Herman Melville sails the same Pacific waters. He carries with him an astonishing book, a memoir of the sinking of the whale ship Essex, written by her first mate, Owen Chase. There is another account that Melville never sees, written decades later by the former cabin boy of the Essex. Thomas Nickerson's eyewitness report is lost in an attic for over 100 years. Now the full story of the Essex and the fate of her crew can finally be told. Our story begins in August 1819 on a windswept island off the Massachusetts coast, the island of Nantucket. In 1819, Nantucket claims only 8,000 inhabitants. It is the whaling center of North America and one of the wealthiest communities in the United States, a financial empire built on the slaughter of the most valued commodity of the day, whales. Today, we have turned from predator to protector. Considered creatures of grace, beauty, and surprising intelligence, whales are now seen as international treasures.
Whaling as an industry was incredibly important. If you had a lamp in your home, the oil in it was whale oil. The other thing that it was important for was lubrication. You know, the 19th century is considered the Industrial Revolution, and all those machines and all those mills like all those cotton mills in New England, those were all lubricated with whale oil.
The ultimate source is the sperm whale. Named for its oil that resembles the color of semen, the sperm whale is prized for its clean-burning oil and its top value on the market. In 1819, 100 years of hunting has taken its toll.
Sperm whaling first began in about 1720, when Nantucketers started taking the whales in the deep waters to the south of their island. By about 1800, the waters of the Atlantic weren't very profitable cruising. Many of the sperm whales who'd been there had been killed.
Populations are shrinking. Survivors are moving farther and farther offshore, into the heart of the oceans. For hunting crews like the men of the Essex, dwindling whale populations means longer voyages to more remote seas. Ships hunt the length of the Atlantic, then round Cape Horn to the Pacific Ocean. The men will be at sea for at least 2 years. For 28-year-old George Pollard, a successful voyage will pay him a share of the profits worth more than $150,000 today. He has been given command of the American whale ship Essex, his first captaincy. Like most captains, Pollard has been selected by a handful of wealthy islanders who control all of Nantucket's 70 whale ships. Household names like Macy, Folger, Starbuck, the oil barons of their day. Ironically, they are Quakers, a Christian congregation that forbids violence to fellow humans but sanctions the slaughter of wild creatures. Pollard's first mate is 22-year-old Owen Chase, an ambitious man eager to captain his own ship. "14-year-old Thomas Nickerson is making his first voyage as the ship's cabin boy, a sign of manhood on the island of Nantucket.
It was the most pleasing moment of my life when I went for the first time aboard that ship. Black and ugly as she was, I would not have exchanged her for a palace. Thomas Nickerson, cabin boy."
Two of Nickerson's friends will sail with him, Owen Coffin and Charles Ramsdell. Coffin comes from a prominent Nantucket family and is Captain Pollard's first cousin. On August 12, 1819, the Essex is ready. Finally, it is time to leave. As the Essex slips into the Atlantic, a great gray giant begins his own journey south from the Bering Sea, on his annual voyage to the mating grounds of the mid-Pacific, where pods of females live and raise their young. For most of the year, he's a solitary male, hunting for squid in cold northern waters. He eats nearly 4,000 pounds per day.
The whale was a really big male, one of the very biggest, and probably one of the oldest. He may have been in his 60s, or perhaps even older. This was an enormous an animal of great power, great strength.
The giant is almost as long as the Essex itself. The deck of the ship is barely longer than a tennis court, 87 feet long, 25 feet wide. Her lower decks hold 1,200 barrels to be filled with oil. After 20 years of slamming through the roughest waters on Earth, she is nearly worn out. Within these cramped wooden quarters, the crew makes their home. The officers' cabins are at the stern. White crewmen bunk amidships. Black sailors live in a tiny space under the forward deck. Many have never left the shore. They have no idea of the hardships ahead. Just 4 days from home, the Essex encounters a violent storm. Pollard orders the ship turned around to run with the wind, but miscalculates the speed of the storm. The squall hits the Essex broadside and slams the ship sideways into the sea. Pollard is fortunate. A huge swell sets the Essex upright, and her terrified crew survives. But there is far worse in store. After discovering 2 whaleboats have been lost, Pollard orders a return to Nantucket for repairs.
Torn, Captain. 2 whaleboats crushed, another lost.
Owen Chase fears the novice crew will desert if the Essex returns to Nantucket. Chase challenges the captain's authority. Pollard wavers, then abandons the homeward course. With an indecisive commander and an ambitious first mate, the Essex is a ship with 2 masters. Already, the men have endured a pummeling storm and observed the weakness of their wavering captain, and they have yet to even see a single whale. The sperm whales hunted by the Essex are the largest toothed mammals on Earth. Their brain is the biggest of any living creature, 6 times the size of a human's. Their massive heads contain 500 gallons of a unique oily substance that scientists believe is used for echolocation, the whale's method of navigating the sea. But their tremendous size masks a peaceful nature.
The sperm whale has had rather bad press, mainly because of Moby Dick. It is, in fact, one of the most timid and gentle animals you'll ever run across.
To hunt them, the Essex must replace her lost whaleboats. Finally, on the Cape Verde Islands, Pollard finds and purchases a whaleboat. But after 2 months at sea, his holds are empty. Then, off the coast of Brazil,
Blow! About a gallon and 1 or 2 bulls off to westward!
the novice crewmen have had 2 months to learn to sail. Now they must prove their courage in the hunt.
The sperm whales are quite easy to track. This is because they tend to move steadily and not too fast through the ocean. More often than not, they move in straight lines. And so the whalers knew this, and they could predict with quite a lot of success where the whales were going to come up.
The whaleboats are fast but fragile. Harpooning the giants as they surface for air is a dangerous game. A flick of a tail could smash the boat into splinters. Once harpooned, the whale drags the boat behind, furiously swimming until its strength is spent. They call it a Nantucket sleigh ride. The kill is cautious, but cruel. Thrusting a lance deeper and deeper to puncture the lungs, the whale dies by drowning in its own blood. Producing bloody spurts through the blowhole, the men call it chimneys of fire.
It was very gruesome, and the water would be full of blood. The water turns red all around you, and you can hear the whale dying, and the death throes and the gaspings through the blowhole, and it was just awful.
Now the massive carcass must be towed back to the ship, requiring hours of back-breaking rowing. Then the butchery begins. First, huge slabs of blubber are cut from the whale. Then smaller slices, nicknamed Bible leaves, are thrown into the reeking cauldrons.
Rendering oil produces a thick, greasy smoke that just invades everything. It invades the sails, the sides of the ship, the clothing of the men, the hair of the men, this foul, thick, greasy smoke that kept the smell with you until you were finally finished.
Last, the massive head is cut open. The 500 gallons of pure oil inside is so valuable, the men crawl inside to drain every drop. After 4 months at sea, only one sperm whale has been killed, yielding a paltry 40 barrels of oil. Any hope of profit requires sailing to the Pacific Ocean and braving the infamous Cape Horn. Nearly 10,000 miles away in the mid-Pacific, pods of female sperm whales are awaiting the annual mating season. Soon, males will arrive and compete for breeding rights.
A female sperm whale, in the best of times, maybe can give birth once every 4 years, but often it's every 5 or 10. And when the humans knocked the populations down, the sperm whales weren't ready for that. And it's been calculated that a sperm whale population, even at the best of times, can only increase at perhaps less than 1% a year.
Off the coast of Peru, the hunting improves. The men kill 11 more whales and process 800 barrels of oil. But the holds remain half empty. More whales must be found. There are rumors of abundance, thousands of miles north and west. It is called the offshore ground.
As the Essex was making its way north, it's likely that the male sperm whale was making his way from his feeding grounds towards these same waters of the equator. And for some of the same reasons, both the ship and the male was interested in those schools of female sperm whales.
In late November 1820, 15 months after leaving Nantucket, the Essex reaches the offshore ground.
There she blows! White water!
They have found the sperm whale's breeding ground and enough adult whales to fill their holds with oil. The lone gray giant has also arrived to claim the waters as his own.
He is continually keeping track of the other males, frightening them off, probably mainly with the sound of his clicks. But if any of them are being particularly brazen, he may go and attack them and fight them. The males don't fight often, but they do, and when they do, these fights can be brutal.
November 20, 1820. The hunt begins, but the danger has doubled. The depths are alive with aggressive males ready to defend their territory. Chase's boat suffers the first blow of battle, his boat slammed by a breaching whale. They are forced to row back to the Essex for repairs. But the giant has seemingly been tracking Chase's movements. This is no ordinary whale.
Chase himself uses the language of intention, of malice, of vengefulness, of cunning. Chase's whale is a malevolent whale.
100 yards from the ship, the giant breaks the surface.
His face is covered with these big scratches and scars. Some of these come from encounters with the big squid that he eats, but the majority come from the fights.
Motionless, it is as if he is waiting, plotting.
I saw a very large whale approaching us. I called out to the mate to inform him of it.
Mr. Chase, whale off the larboard bow!
Then the giant takes aim at the old wooden ship and charges.
I involuntarily ordered the boy at the helm to put it up hard, intending to sheer off and avoid him. Owen Chase, first mate.
Scarcely had the sound reached my ears when it was followed by a tremendous crash.
The ship brought up as suddenly and violently as if she had struck a rock. We looked at each other with perfect amazement.
The impact destroys part of the keel. Stunned by the collision, the whale floats alongside. At 85 feet, he's the greatest whale ever seen. Instinctively, Owen Chase grabs his lance, then hesitates. If stabbed, the giant's thrashing tail could splinter the rudder and leave the Essex adrift and helpless, 1,000 miles from shore. The whale recovers and retreats a quarter mile. Then charges again. He pushes the entire vessel backwards.
The first ramming, I think, may have been an accident. The second clearly wasn't. Males occasionally have these important, vicious, and dangerous fights with one another. So they have in their makeup a strong, aggressive impulse. The impulse that came was that which is very important to him when he is attacked by other males, to attack back.
Unharmed, the whale backs away and disappears into the depths, as chronicled in Melville's Moby Dick.
The whale has to stay alive because the whale is not really an individual animal. The whale stands for something far more than that. The whale stands for that in the world which is greater than man, that man will never conquer, that man will never rule over. There is something out there that is bigger than all of us. Moby Dick is still out there somewhere.
The whale's attack, first depicted in Nickerson's drawings, can now be analyzed with modern technology. An 80-ton whale charging at 6 knots meets a 300-ton ship moving at 3 knots, creating an impact force of 250 tons. The oak ribs of the Essex are not solid lengths of wood, but rather an interlocking peg and timber system. At 20 years old, the hull of the Essex cannot withstand the force of a charging giant. As the Essex founders and swamps, Captain Pollard and the others abandon the hunt. Scrambling aboard, the men salvage canvas, navigation aids, and firearms. They have only 3 small boats. Each can carry 200 pounds of hardtack and 65 gallons of water. Enough for 60 days, if all goes well. Small boats with makeshift sails and thousands of miles of empty ocean in every direction. The next morning, Pollard announces his plan. They will follow the trade winds to Tahiti and the Society Islands, 2,000 miles to the southwest. But again, Owen Chase disagrees. There are rumors that cannibals inhabit the islands. Chase proposes an eastward course toward Chile, where other ships may find them. But this is twice as far as Tahiti, and against the wind and current. Again, Captain Pollard wavers, then defers to his first and second mates.
Not wishing to oppose where there was 2 against 1, the captain reluctantly agreed to their arguments. Fatal error. How many warm hearts have ceased to beat in consequence of it? Thomas Nickerson, cabin boy.
The men are divided among the 3 boats. Captain Pollard claims 6 Nantucket sailors for his boat, including Owen Coffin, his teenage cousin. Chase selects the other whites. Second mate Matthew Joy is put with the remaining black shipmates, and no navigational aids. The men reluctantly leave the Essex, their only home for more than a year. For Melville's Moby Dick, this was the story's end. For the men of the Essex, their ordeal has just begun. Within days, seawater soaks much of the hardtack. Eating it simply worsens their raging thirst. By the 3rd week, provisions are short. Starvation sets in. Their bodies burn beneath a merciless sun. The waters yield no fish, and rain caught in salt-laden sails is undrinkable.
The body and the mind deteriorate together. With the loss of weight and loss of fat, you get edema, a swelling of the limbs, especially the legs. The body musculature falls away if the fat is burnt up. There's a loss of energy psychologically as well as physically, so that you're not motivated to do much. You stop thinking, really. You stop problem solving.
After nearly a month in the boats, they have few provisions and little hope left. And then...
There's land!
Land. Dry land offers a chance of salvation. Pollard's inaccurate charts put them at a coral outcrop called Ducie Island. But this is Henderson Island, 50 square miles of sand and scrub. A month after their ship was destroyed by a sperm whale, the men of the Essex crawl ashore. They find birds to be stolen from their nests, crabs and shellfish on the shore, and dry space to stretch their weakened limbs.
Here everyone seated himself upon the grass, and perhaps no banquet was ever enjoyed with greater gusto or gave such universal satisfaction. Thomas Nickerson, cabin boy.
Staying on the island is a gamble. If they find no fresh water, they will deplete what little they carry.
After the most diligent search, no water could be discovered. And at nightfall, we were compelled to return, sorrowing and dejected.
Chase urges Pollard to return to the boats. They are wasting time. There is no water to be found, but the captain insists on searching the island one more day.
One more day, Mr. Chase.
The next morning, a promising find. For a half hour each day, the tide lowers to reveal a freshwater spring.
Relax. There's plenty for everyone. Relax. There's plenty for everyone. I felt at that moment as if I could have fallen down and thanked God for this single act of mercy.
The fifth day on Henderson is Christmas Eve, but the island provides no more gifts. In less than a week, the men have consumed nearly everything the land can offer. Their choice is grim: starve on the island or struggle at sea. There is one slim chance. The winds and currents could push them to tiny Easter Island, 1,000 miles east. Once again, Pollard must face the sea and pray that it can deliver them safely home. December 27, 1820. 3 men decide to stay and stake survival on the island. Pollard promises to send a ship if any survive. With water casks full and a small supply of fish, they have a fighting chance. Days of gusting winds push them southward, far beyond the salvation of Easter Island, and still 2,000 miles from the coast of Chile. Day 49. 2 weeks after leaving Henderson Island, death strikes. Second mate Matthew Joy is the first to die. A fellow Nantucketer, he's given a Christian burial at sea. Two days later, a storm drives Chase's boat from the other two.
In vain did we look over every part of the ocean for our companions. They were gone. Owen Chase, first mate.
The lifeline of comradeship gone, death seems inevitable. Only 8 days later, on Chase's boat, the eldest crewman is ready to die.
Very frequently people will just say, okay, I've had enough of this, now I'm going to die. They're not in noticeably worse shape than they were the day before, but their will to live has just given out. And they lie down and wrap themselves in a piece of cloth if they have one and turn their face to the wall, and that's the end.
We committed his remains to the deep, breathing his requiem in silence. Thomas Nickerson, cabin boy.
Now, provisions are nearly gone. With no other boats to depend on, Chase faces a horrible prospect: starving to death or eating the next man to die.
All sailors, Melville included, would know that cannibalism was, in some sense, a part of a sailor's life. That is to say, all sailors knew that at the end of the day, if things came to it, cannibalism might be the only way to survive.
On Pollard's boat, 300 miles away, another crewman dies. The death forces Pollard to face the same decision as Chase.
basically human beings are meat. If you've been starved long enough, when you're suddenly confronted with the possibility that here is, 120 pounds of meat or 100 pounds of meat, the thought of eating it must not be very far behind.
They eat the heart, liver, and kidneys raw, then try to sear the 30 pounds of sinewy flesh the corpse provides. After more than 2 months at sea, Pollard's boat drifts away in the darkness. Now, all 3 boats sail alone toward further human horrors. Day 78. On Chase's boat, a crewman is on the brink of madness and death.
He lay in the greatest pain and apparent misery, groaning piteously until he died in the most horrid convulsions I have ever witnessed.
Less than 100 miles north, Captain Pollard faces the ultimate human abhorrence. "16-year-old Charles Ramsdell suggests that one be executed to sustain the others.
No.
Pollard refuses.
But if I die first, you're all welcome to subsist on my remains.
Captain.
But Owen Coffin, his own cousin, supports the idea.
I think the psychological difference between eating somebody who has died of natural causes, and killing somebody is a very big one. I think it's a big psychological step, especially one of the people that has suffered with you, worked with you, been with you from Nantucket on to the whaling situation, to the shipwreck, in the boats, and so on, and sort of cold-bloodedly killing him so that you can eat him. I think that's a very major psychological threshold to cross.
The lots are drawn. Young Owen Coffin is the loser.
I'll shoot the first man who touches you.
I like it as well as any other.
Coffin accepts his fate and prepares to die. Again, they draw lots. This time for executioner. Charles Ramsdell must kill his boyhood friend.
I can't. Come on, team, and draw him fair.
Chase, Lawrence, and Nickerson have endured nearly 3 months at sea and the horrors of inhumanity. On February 18, 1821, they awaken to a sight they had only dared to dream of. It is the British merchant ship Indian sailing off the coast of Chile. Finally, their ordeal is over. Owen Chase has navigated 2,500 miles of ocean. But Pollard's boat has yet to be found. 5 days later, and 400 miles south, the Nantucket whaler Dauphin comes upon a horrendous scene. Pollard and Ramsdell, the only survivors, have been found.
The men were found sucking the bones of their dead mates, which they were loath to part with. Commodore Charles Goodwin Ridgely.
I think by the time that they were rescued, they were probably insane, completely unaware of circumstances around them, unaware of the ship being there, probably unaware of each other. And I'm not even sure they were aware of themselves.
Despite his condition, Pollard has a fierce need to talk, to recount one of the strangest tales of the sea ever told, and to plead that a ship be sent to find the remaining men on the deserted island. April 9th, 1821, an Australian merchant vessel searches Henderson Island and finds the 3 castaways of the whale ship Essex. They have survived for 3 months on shellfish and berries. There are to be no more miracles. The 3rd boat is never found. June 11th, 1821. Chase, Ramsdell, Lawrence, and Nickerson return home to Nantucket, where family and the Quaker community quietly accepts their tragic, desperate deeds. Two months later, George Pollard returns. Neither church nor community condemn him, but Owen Coffin's mother, who placed her boy in the captain's care, never forgives Pollard. Three months after returning to Nantucket, Pollard is granted another command. Thomas Nickerson and Charles Ramsdell sail with him. They are Nantucketers. The sea is the only life they know. The fates are against George Pollard. His whaler goes aground off Hawaii. But this time, no men are lost. At the age of 31, Pollard's maritime career is over. He becomes Nantucket's night watchman. Pollard dies in 1870. Within a year of returning, Owen Chase angers Nantucketers by writing a shocking account of the Essex, admitting the horrors of cannibalism. Soon after, he returns to the sea and the slaughter of whales. But advancing age brings back unspeakable memories. He begins compulsively hoarding food in the attic of his home and is declared insane. In 1869, Owen Chase dies. Although weaving Chase's account of the Essex disaster into Moby Dick, Herman Melville's story of a vengeful whale is poorly received. But the novel endures and becomes a classic long after the author's death.
In a sense, Moby Dick ends up, the novel says, there's no way to win out over the world. Man will be a victim of violence, of death, of misery, but also a sense that in fighting against the world and the horrors of the world and the miseries of life, you achieve some kind of heroic stature. You become wiser, if sadder.
Of the giant whale that sank the Essex, nothing can be known. But his legacy lives on in the 2 million sperm whales who thrive today in deep waters far beyond the Nantucket shore.